The Volanthi Empire had ruled the stars for 1,000 years. They had conquered 17 star systems. They had crushed every species that stood against them. Their ships were fast and deadly. Their warriors were tall and proud. They believed they were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Then they found the humans. The war started over a small planet on the edge of Volanthi space. The humans had built a colony there. The Volanthi demanded they leave. The humans refused. What the Volanthi thought would be a quick and easy victory turned into something very different. The humans fought back. They fought with guns and bombs and ships that should not have been able to match Volanthi technology. They fought with tricks and traps and plans that no one expected. When the Volanthi destroyed their communications, the humans used lights to send messages. When the Volanthi disabled their ships, the humans put on spacesuits and floated across the void to attack Volanthi cruisers with nothing but rifles and knives. It was madness. It was terrifying. And it worked. For 3 years, the war continued. The Volanthi pushed forward. The humans pushed back. Neither side could win. Neither side would surrender. Millions died on both sides, and still the fighting went on. High Empress Ilara Veth watched it all from her palace on Volantis Prime. She was the eldest daughter of the dying emperor. She was 7 feet tall with lavender skin and silver eyes that could see energy fields invisible to other species. She was beautiful by the standards of her people, cold and perfect like a statue carved from ice. She had been trained since birth to rule an empire, and she knew the war had to end. Her father was sick. Her brothers were dead, killed in the fighting against the humans. The empire was bleeding soldiers and ships and resources. If the war continued much longer, there would be nothing left to rule. So Lara did something no Volanthi empress had ever done before. She called for peace. The summit was held on Lesser Prime, a moon that belonged to neither side. Ilara brought her best diplomats, her smartest advisors, her most experienced generals. She prepared for weeks, studying human culture and history and psychology. She expected to face warriors and politicians, hard men with hard eyes who would bargain for every advantage. Instead, she met Daniel Gray. He was not impressive to look at. By human standards, he was average height, which meant he barely reached Ilara's shoulder. He had brown hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a stormy ocean. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. He looked like a clerk, not a commander. But when he spoke, everyone listened. He did not raise his voice. He did not make threats or demands. He asked questions. He listened to the answers. When the Volanthi diplomats insisted on harsh terms, he simply asked them to explain why those terms mattered to their people. No one had ever asked that before. The negotiations lasted 3 months. Every day, Ilara watched Daniel Gray work. She saw him calm angry admirals with a few quiet words. She saw him find solutions that no one else had considered. She saw him give up advantages that would have helped humanity simply because he wanted the peace to last. She did not understand him. The Volanthi did not think this way. Power was taken. Enemies were crushed. Mercy was weakness. Yet this human seemed to believe something different. They seemed to think that real strength came from building things, not destroying them. It was confusing. It was fascinating. Ilara found herself looking forward to each day of talks, just to see what he would do next. Then came the final obstacle. The Volanthi High Council sent new instructions. They demanded a bond of blood between the two peoples, a marriage between a high-ranking Volanthi and a human leader. It was meant to be impossible. It was meant to end the talks and give the Volanthi an excuse to continue the war. Ilara read the message and felt her heart sink. No human would agree to this. The peace was dead. But Daniel Gray stood up from his chair and looked directly at her. "I would be honored," he said, "if the High Empress would have me." The room exploded. Volanthi advisors shouted in shock. Human diplomats stared with open mouths. Guards on both sides reached for their weapons. Alara raised her hand, and everyone fell silent. She looked at the human standing before her. He was small and plain and completely calm. His ocean-colored eyes showed no fear, no hesitation. He had just offered to bind himself to an alien species for the rest of his life, and he looked like he was discussing the weather. "Why?" she asked him. "Because the peace matters more than my comfort," he said. "Because millions of people on both sides deserve a chance to live without war. Because I believe we can build something better together than we ever could as enemies." She searched his face for lies. She found none. "Very well," she said. "I accept." The wedding was held 1 month later on Volantis Prime. Every screen in both civilizations showed the ceremony. Alara stood at the altar in her imperial robes, towering over the human beside her. Her people whispered that she had sacrificed herself for peace. They called her a prisoner. They pitied her. But when Daniel spoke his vows in the Volanthi language, which he had somehow learned in secret during the negotiations, Alara felt something shift inside her chest. This human continued to surprise her. That night, they stood together on the balcony of her chambers. The crystal towers of the capital city glowed in the light of 3 moons. The air was cold, but Daniel did not seem to notice. "I do not expect love from you," he said quietly. "I do not expect anything you are not willing to give. This marriage was politics, not romance. I understand that." Alara said nothing. She waited. "But I want you to know something," Daniel continued. He turned to face her, and his eyes were very serious. "I made a promise today. I promised to honor you and your people. I promised to work for peace. I will keep that promise, no matter what it costs me." "Why?" she asked again. She could not stop asking. She could not understand. Daniel smiled. It was a small, sad smile that made him look older than his years. "Because that is what humans do," he said. "We make promises. We keep them, even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when everyone else has given up." He looked out at the crystal city, at the empire he had married into. "The peace has to mean something," he said. "Otherwise, what was the point of all that dying?" Alara stood beside her strange new husband and wondered what she had gotten herself into. She had expected a political arrangement, a tool to end the war. She had not expected someone who believed so deeply in something she could not name. She did not know it yet, but her entire understanding of the universe was about to change. This small, quiet human would show her things about power and strength and sacrifice that her 1,000-year-old empire had never imagined. The worlds would bend to him, not through force, not through fear, not through something far more dangerous, not through hope. The first year of marriage was an education for Alara. She had grown up in the imperial palace. She had learned politics from the greatest minds in the empire. She understood power the way her people understood it. The strong commanded. The weak obeyed. Those at the top made decisions. Those at the bottom followed orders. This was how things worked. This was how things had always worked. Daniel Gray did not seem to understand any of this. The first real test came 3 months after the wedding. A mining colony on the border between human and Volanthi space sent an emergency message. The workers had stopped working. They were demanding better conditions, better pay, better treatment. The governor of the colony wanted soldiers to force them back to the mines. Alara expected Daniel to ignore it. It was a small matter, far below the attention of someone married to the Empress. But when she woke the next morning, she found him packing a bag. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To the colony," he said. "I want to see what is happening." "You are going to crush the rebellion?" Daniel paused. He looked at her with those strange ocean eyes. "I'm going to listen," he said. "Then I will decide what to do." She went with him. She told herself it was to observe, to study this odd human and his odd methods. But in truth, she was curious. She wanted to see what he would do. The colony was called Dust's Edge. It was an ugly place, brown and gray and covered in the waste from the mines. The workers lived in metal boxes stacked on top of each other. The air smelled like chemicals. The people looked tired and angry and afraid. The governor met them at the landing pad with 50 soldiers. "Your Highness," he said to Ilara, barely looking at Daniel. "Thank you for coming. The rebels are gathered in the central square. My men are ready to move on your order." "There will be no order," Daniel said quietly. The governor blinked. "Excuse me? No soldiers. No weapons. I'm going to talk to them." "That is madness. They are dangerous criminals. They have stopped production for 3 days. The Empire is losing money every hour." Daniel started walking toward the square. "Then I better not waste any more time." Ilara followed him. So did the governor, still arguing, still demanding that Daniel see reason. The soldiers trailed behind, unsure what to do without direct orders. The square was full of workers. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were dirty and tired, and they watched the newcomers with suspicious eyes. Some held tools that could easily become weapons. The air was thick with tension. Daniel walked into the middle of the crowd. "My name is Daniel Gray," he said. His voice was not loud, but somehow everyone could hear him. "I am married to Empress Ilara. I have come to listen. Will you tell me what is wrong?" For a long moment, no one spoke. Then an old woman stepped forward. Her hands were scarred from years of work. Her back was bent from carrying heavy loads. "We work 16 hours a day," she said. "We breathe poison air. Our children get sick. When we complain, the governor beats us. When we ask for help, no one comes. We are not rebels. We are people. We just want to be treated like people." Daniel nodded. "Tell me more." For 6 hours, he listened. Worker after worker came forward to share their stories. The bad food, the dangerous conditions, the guards who hurt them for fun, the pay that was never enough, the families torn apart when people died in accidents that could have been prevented. Daniel listened to every word. He wrote notes. He asked questions. He never once looked bored or impatient. When the sun began to set, he stood up. "Thank you," he said to the crowd. "I have heard you. Now let me tell you what I am going to do." He turned to face the governor, who had been watching from the edge of the square with growing anger. "Governor Marsh," Daniel said, "you are removed from your position, effective immediately." The governor's face went red. "You cannot do that. I was appointed by the council, and I am overriding that appointment," Daniel said calmly. "These people are not your enemies. They are the reason this colony exists. Without them, there is no mining, no production, no profit. You were supposed to lead them. Instead, you treated them like slaves. That ends now." He turned back to the workers. "A new governor will be sent within the week. A representative council will be formed from among you to advise them. Working hours will be reduced. Safety equipment will be provided. Medical care will be improved. This is not a gift. It is what you deserve. It is what you should have had from the beginning." The old woman stared at him. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care? We are nothing to you. We are just miners on a forgotten rock." Daniel smiled. "Everyone matters," he said. "Every single person. That is what I believe. That is what humanity believes. And now that I am part of this empire, I will make sure the Empire believes it too." The flight home was quiet. Ilara sat across from Daniel and watched him stare out the window at the stars. "You risked your life today," she said finally. "Those people could have killed you. The governor could have ordered his soldiers to attack. You walked into a crowd of angry workers with no protection at all." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "Why?" He turned to look at her. In the dim light of the ship, his face looked older, more tired. "Because that is what leaders do," he said. "Real leaders. They put themselves in danger so others do not have to. They listen to the people they serve. They fix problems instead of ignoring them. My people do not lead that way," Ilara said. "I know," Daniel replied. "But maybe they could learn." She thought about this for a long time. She thought about the workers at Dust's Edge, about their tired faces and desperate hope when Daniel promised to help them. She thought about the governor, so sure of his power, so shocked when it was taken away. She thought about her own empire, about the millions of people on hundreds of worlds who lived and worked and died under Volante rule. Had anyone ever asked them what they needed? Had anyone ever listened? "You are changing things," she said quietly. "You are changing my people." Daniel shook his head. "I am not changing anyone. I am just showing them a different way. They can choose to follow it or not. And if they choose not to," he smiled that sad, small smile again, "then I will keep showing them until they do." Over the following months, Ilara watched as news of Dust's Edge spread through the Empire. She watched as other workers began to demand better treatment. She watched as some governors chose to listen and others chose to fight. And she watched as Daniel traveled from crisis to crisis. Always listening, always looking for solutions, always treating every person as if they mattered. It was not efficient. It was not the Volante way. But slowly, painfully, things began to change. Ilara started to understand something important. The humans had not won the war because they had better weapons or smarter tactics. They had fought to a standstill because they believed in something. They believed that every person had value. They believed that the little people mattered as much as the great ones did. It was a terrifying belief. It meant that power came not from strength, but from the faith of those you led. It meant that even an empress could be wrong. It meant that the entire Volante way of life was built on a lie. And standing at the center of this quiet revolution was one ordinary human who refused to accept the world as it was. Ilara was beginning to think that ordinary was the most dangerous thing a person could be. In the 3rd year of their marriage, the sky fell. The Kalari came from the edge of the galaxy. No one knew where they started. No one knew how long they had been traveling through the darkness between stars. All anyone knew was what they did. They ate worlds. The Kalari were not like any species the Volante had ever seen. They were not people with ships and weapons and plans. They were a swarm, billions of creatures that moved like a single hungry mind. Their bodies were black and hard, and they could survive in the cold vacuum of space. Their ships were alive, grown from the same flesh as the creatures themselves. When they found a world, they landed and consumed everything. Plants, animals, people, even the rocks and the water. They left nothing behind but dead gray dust. The first warning came from a Volante colony on the outer rim. The message was short and filled with screaming. Then the signal went dead. 2 more colonies fell before anyone understood what was happening. By the time the Volante High Council gathered to discuss the threat, 50 million people were dead. Ilara sat in the Great Hall and listened to her generals argue. Some wanted to send the entire fleet to destroy the Kalari. Some wanted to pull back and defend the core worlds. Some wanted to ask the humans for help. Some would rather die than show weakness to their former enemies. The arguments went on for hours. No one could agree. No one wanted to take responsibility for a decision that might doom the Empire. Then Daniel stood up. he was still not impressive to look at. After 3 years among the Volanti, he was still short and plain and unremarkable. But when he spoke, the room went silent. "I have a proposal," he said. "Send me." Alara felt her heart stop. "Send you where?" demanded General Korath, the oldest and most stubborn of the military commanders. "To lead the fleet against the Kalari. I will take Volanti ships and human volunteers. We will stop the swarm before it reaches the inner worlds." The generals laughed. Some of them actually laughed. "You?" Korath said. "A human? Leading Volanti warriors?" "Yes," Daniel said calmly. "You have no experience. No training. You are a diplomat, not a soldier. I commanded human forces during the war. I was at the Battle of Red Reach and the Siege of Coulter Station. I have fought the Volanti. I can fight alongside them." Korath's face darkened. "You killed my brother at Red Reach." "I know," Daniel said. "And you killed my best friend at Coulter Station. But that was war. This is survival. The Kalari do not care if we are human or Volanti. They will eat us all the same." The room was silent. Alara wanted to speak, wanted to stop this madness, but her voice would not come. Her father, the Emperor, sat on his crystal throne at the head of the hall. He was dying. Everyone knew it. His lavender skin had gone gray. His silver eyes were clouded with pain. He had not spoken in council for more than a year, but now he leaned forward. "You would die for an empire that is not yours," he said. His voice was weak but clear. "For people who have never accepted you." Daniel met the dying emperor's gaze. "I married your daughter to end the war," he said. "That means I am responsible for the peace that came after." The Kalari threaten everyone, human and Volanti alike. "So yes, I will die for your people, because they are my people now too." The emperor smiled. It was a thin, tired smile, but it was real. "Then go," he said, "and may the stars remember your name." The battle began 3 weeks later. The Allied fleet met the Kalari at the Korath Corridor, a narrow passage between star systems where the swarm would have to concentrate its forces. Daniel commanded from the bridge of the battleship Unyielding Resolve, surrounded by Volanti officers who did not trust him and human. Volunteers who would follow him anywhere. Alara stayed behind on Volantis Prime. Daniel had insisted. Someone has to keep the Empire running, he told her before he left. Someone has to make sure this was not all for nothing. "You are going to die," she said. He took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her since their wedding day. "Maybe," he said. "But if I do, it will mean something. That is all any of us can ask for." She watched his ship fly away and felt something break inside her chest. She did not have a name for it then. She would learn later that humans called it heartbreak. The battle lasted 19 days. Alara watched the reports come in from her command center. She saw the numbers change as ships were destroyed and rebuilt, as the swarm advanced and retreated, as the casualty lists grew longer and longer. The Kalari were relentless. Their living ships healed faster than they could be damaged. Their swarm adapted to every tactic, every weapon, every strategy. The Allied fleet was pushed back again and again, but they did not break. Daniel found the key on the 8th day. The Kalari moved as one because certain creatures in the swarm sent signals to all the others. Kill those signal creatures, and the rest fell into chaos. It was like cutting the head off a snake. The Allied fleet changed tactics. Human ships, fast and unpredictable, drew the swarm's attention. Volanti ships, precise and powerful, struck at the signal creatures. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. On the 15th day, the Kalari boarded the Unyielding Resolve. Alara heard the report and felt her world crumble. Hundreds of creatures had broken through the hull. They were spreading through the ship, killing everyone they found. The bridge was under attack. She waited for the next report. For hours, nothing came. The communication channels were filled with static and screaming. Then Daniel's voice came through, tired and rough but alive. "Bridge secured," he said, moving to repel remaining boarders. Later, she learned what had happened. When the Kalari broke through, Daniel had grabbed a pistol and a blade and led the defense himself. He had killed 17 of the creatures in hand-to-hand combat. He had held the door to the bridge while the surviving crew evacuated the wounded. He had fought until reinforcements arrived, covered in wounds that would take weeks to heal. On the 19th day, the Kalari fled. They were not destroyed. They were not all dead, but they were broken. The swarm scattered back toward the darkness at the edge of the galaxy, and the Allied fleet let them go. There was no need to chase. The message had been delivered. Do not come here again. Daniel's ship limped home with a hull held together by emergency repairs and desperate hope. When it landed on Volantis Prime, half the city had gathered to watch. Ilara stood on the landing pad as the door opened. She had prepared a speech. She had memorized words of praise and gratitude and honor. But when Daniel walked down the ramp, thin and battered and covered in barely healed scars, all her words disappeared. She crossed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him. "You came back," she whispered. His arms closed around her. She could feel how much weight he had lost. She could feel his heart beating against her chest. "I promised," he said. "The peace has to mean something." She held him for a long time. She did not care that the entire city was watching. She did not care that Volanti emperors did not show emotion in public. She did not care about anything except the fact that he was alive. And in that moment, standing on the landing pad with the man who had nearly died to save her people, Ilara finally understood what she felt. She loved him, not because of politics or treaties or the good of the Empire. She loved him because he was brave and kind and stubborn. She loved him because he believed in things even when everyone else had given up. She loved him because he had shown her a different way to live. Everything was different now. Everything had changed. The years after the Kalari War were golden. For the first time in living memory, humans and Volanti worked together as true partners. Their ships patrolled the borders side by side. Their merchants traded goods across 100 worlds. Their children studied together in schools that taught both cultures. The old hatred faded like a bad dream. At the center of it all stood Daniel Gray. He held no official title. He commanded no armies. He controlled no money. He was just the husband of the Empress, a human in a Volanti court, a guest in a palace that was not his home. But somehow, everyone listened to him. When disputes arose between human and Volanti interests, both sides asked for his advice. When problems threatened the peace, he traveled to wherever he was needed. When people were afraid or angry or confused, he found a way to calm them. Ilara watched her husband become the most important person in two civilizations without ever trying to be. She also watched it slowly destroy him. Daniel could not say no. Every crisis called to him. Every injustice demanded his attention. He worked when he should have rested. He traveled when he should have stayed home. He gave pieces of himself to everyone who asked him till there was almost nothing left. The wounds from the Kalari War never fully healed. How could they? He never gave them time. Every week brought a new emergency, a new problem, a new group of people who needed his help. He slept 4 hours a night. He ate only when someone reminded him. He grew thin and pale and tired in ways that frightened her. And then there were the assassins. Not everyone loved the Alliance. Some humans thought their species had surrendered to alien masters. Some Volanti thought their pure culture was being poisoned by outsiders. These people wanted the peace to fail. They wanted Daniel dead. The first attempt came in the 4th year. a bomb hidden in a diplomatic package. Daniel's guards found it before it could explode. The second attempt came 6 months later. Poison in his food. He spent 3 weeks in the medical bay, too sick to speak. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth attempts. Ilara lost count. Daniel stopped telling her about them. She found out from his guards, who reported to her in secret because they knew their commander would never admit weakness. In the 7th year. She had enough. She found him in his study late at night, surrounded by reports and messages and requests for help. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. His hand shook when he reached for his cup of tea. "You cannot continue like this," she said. Daniel did not look up from his papers. "There is too much to do. You are killing yourself." "I am doing my job." Ilara crossed the room and took the papers from his hands. He finally looked at her, surprised by her sudden movement. "Your job," she said firmly, "is to stay alive. Your job is to be my partner. You cannot do either of those things if you work yourself to death. The peace needs me. I need you." The words hung in the air between them. She had never said anything like that before. Their marriage had started as politics. Over the years, it had become something else, something deeper, but neither of them had spoken about it directly. Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then his shoulders slumped. "I am tired," he admitted quietly. "I am so tired. But every time I think about stopping, I remember all the people who are counting on me. If I fail them, if I let them down, then let me help you." He blinked. "What?" Ilara sat down across from him. "You have been carrying this weight alone. You think you have to solve every problem yourself. But you are not alone anymore. You have me. Let me share the burden. You are the Empress. You have your own responsibilities. And you are my husband. Your responsibilities are my responsibilities." She reached out and took his shaking hands in hers. "We are partners, Daniel. That means we work together. That means we support each other. That means you do not have to do this by yourself." He looked at their joined hands. His eyes were wet. "I do not know how to stop," he whispered. "I have been fighting for so long. First the war, then the peace, then the Kaleri. There is always something. There is always someone who needs help. Then we will learn together," Ilara said. "We will find a balance. We will take care of the galaxy and take care of each other. But you have to trust me. You have to let me in." For a long moment, he did not speak. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Together," he said. "Together," she agreed. From that day forward, things changed. Ilara used her position to take on the diplomatic work that had been crushing him. She handled the petty disputes and the minor crises. She met with delegations and signed treaties and managed the endless paperwork of running 2 civilizations. Daniel focused on the things that truly needed his special talents. The major problems. The dangerous situations. The moments when everything was about to fall apart and only he could hold it together. They worked as a team. They made decisions together. When one of them was overwhelmed, the other stepped in. When one of them was discouraged, the other offered strength. The assassination attempts did not stop. The problems did not disappear. The galaxy was still full of people who hated them and everything they stood for. But they faced it all together, and that made all the difference. Ilara's father, the old emperor, died in the 8th year. She became full empress, the sole ruler of the Volanti Empire. On the day of her coronation, she stood before the crystal throne and made an announcement that shocked everyone. "From this day forward," she said, "Daniel Gray will rule beside me as my equal. He will have the same authority as I have. His word will carry the same weight as mine. He is no longer just the consort of the Empress. He is the Emperor." The court erupted. The nobles shouted. The generals demanded to know if she had lost her mind. Daniel stood beside her, looking almost as shocked as everyone else. "You did not tell me you were going to do this," he murmured. "If I had told you, you would have refused," she replied. "Now it is done, Alara. You have given everything for this empire," she said. "For my people. For the peace. It is time my people gave something back. You deserve this. You have earned it." He looked out at the angry, confused crowd. Then he looked at her. "Together?" he asked. She smiled. "Together." The anger faded over time. The nobles learned to accept their new emperor. The generals learned to respect him. The people learned to love him. This strange human who had married their empress and saved their worlds and changed their entire way of life. But out in the darkness, far beyond the borders of the Alliance, something was watching. Something was planning. Something had seen the power that grew between these two civilizations and decided it had to be destroyed. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, it would test everything Daniel and Alara had built. The consortium had watched the human Volanthi alliance with growing fear for years. They were not a single species, but a collection of civilizations from the far side of the galaxy. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had survived by being careful, by staying hidden, by never letting any one power grow strong enough to threaten them. Now, they saw something new, something terrifying. Two species that should have destroyed each other had instead joined together. Humanity, young and fierce and unpredictable. The Volanthi, ancient and proud and powerful. Separately, either could be managed. Together, they were becoming something unprecedented. The consortium decided this could not be allowed. They did not attack with ships or weapons. They attacked with lies. The evidence arrived at the Volanthi High Council on a quiet morning in the 10th year of the Alliance. Documents, recordings, messages, all of it pointing to one terrible conclusion. Daniel Gray was a traitor. According to the evidence, he had been working for human interests all along. He had manipulated the peace treaty to favor humanity. He had weakened Volanthi defenses. He had used his position to steal secrets and technology. His marriage to Alara was not a bridge between civilizations. It was an invasion. The evidence was perfect. Every detail checked out. Every document was authentic. Every recording matched Daniel's voice exactly. It was a lie. It was all a lie. But it was a lie that could not be disproven. The High Council demanded an emergency meeting. The nobles who had never accepted Daniel saw their chance to destroy him. The generals who resented his authority called for his arrest. Even some of Daniel's supporters began to doubt. Alara sat on her crystal throne and listened to the accusations. She kept her face calm, but inside she was fighting to control her rage. "The evidence is clear," said Lord Varn, the leader of the noble opposition. "The human has betrayed us. He must face justice." "This evidence is false," Alara said. "With respect, Empress, you cannot be objective. He is your husband. Your judgment is compromised." The council murmured in agreement. Alara felt her support slipping away. Then Daniel stepped forward. He had been standing silently at the edge of the hall, watching the proceedings without trying to defend himself. Now he walked to the center of the room, facing the assembled lords and generals and advisors. "You are afraid," he said. The room went silent. "Not of me," Daniel continued. "Of what I represent. What humanity represents. We came out of nowhere. We fought you to a standstill. We changed your society in ways you never expected. And now someone is telling you that we were your enemies all along." He looked around the room, meeting every eye. "You want to believe it. It would be easy. It would let you go back to the way things were, before you had to share your galaxy with creatures. You do not fully understand." He paused. But think about what you would lose. He gestured to the great windows that showed the capital, cities stretching away to the horizon. The Calari came, and humans bled beside you. The trade networks that feed your outer colonies run on human ships. Your children study with human children in schools across both our territories. You are not the same people you were a decade ago. Neither are we. He turned to face Ilara on her throne. The consortium wants you to destroy this alliance because they fear what it represents. Two civilizations, different as night and day, choosing to stand together, choosing to trust each other, choosing to build something greater than either could alone. He spread his hands, showing that he carried no weapons, no defenses, nothing but his words. So make your choice. Believe the lies and execute me, and watch everything we have built crumble. Or trust the man who has bled for you, fought for you, sacrificed everything for a peace he believes in with his whole heart. The silence stretched on and on. Ilara saw the council members looking at each other, uncertain, afraid. She stood. "The evidence is rejected," she said. Her voice rang through the hall like a bell. "The consortium's deception is noted and will be answered. And my husband will remain at my side, where he has always belonged." Lord Varn surged to his feet. "You cannot simply ignore. I am Empress." Ilara's voice cut through his protest like a blade. "I have made my choice. Does anyone wish to challenge me?" No one spoke. No one moved. Even the most hostile nobles knew better than to defy the Empress directly. "Then we are done here," Ilara said. "Return to your duties. Prepare for the response to the consortium's attack. And never forget what we have built together." The council dispersed. Some were angry. Some were relieved. Some were already planning how they could use this crisis to their advantage. But the alliance held dot in the weeks that followed. The truth came out. Consortium agents were captured and interrogated. The fabrication techniques were exposed. The documents were proven false. Daniel's name was cleared beyond any doubt. But the real victory was not about evidence or proof. It was about trust. The night after the council meeting, Ilara found Daniel on their balcony, staring out at the Crystal City. She walked up beside him and took his hand. "You did not defend yourself," she said. "You could have argued. You could have fought back against the accusations." "I could have," he agreed. "But it would not have mattered. Words cannot prove loyalty. Only actions can. Only choices can. You risked everything on my choice." He turned to look at her. In the light of the 3 moons, his ocean eyes were soft and warm. "I trusted you," he said simply. "The same way you have learned to trust me." She thought about the journey they had taken together. The war and the peace. The treaty and the marriage. The Calari and the crises and the endless days of building something new. She thought about the man standing beside her. This small, quiet, ordinary human who had changed everything. "When I married you," she said slowly, "I thought I was sacrificing myself. I thought I was giving up my freedom for the good of my people. I expected nothing from you but politics. And now?" Daniel asked. She squeezed his hand. "Now I understand what you have been trying to show me all along. Power is not about force. It is not about making people afraid. It is about inspiring them. It is about showing them what is possible and letting them choose to reach for it." She looked out at the city, at the stars, at a galaxy that was slowly changing. "That is why the worlds bend to you," she said. "Not because you conquered them. Not because you threatened them. But because you showed them a better way, and they chose to follow." Daniel smiled. It was not his sad smile or his tired smile. It was a real smile, full of warmth and hope. "That is not just me," he said. "That is what happens when people decide to believe in each other. Human and Volanthi. You and me. Everyone who chose to take a chance on something new. He put his arm around her. "We built this together," he said. "We will protect it together. And when the next crisis comes, because there is always a next crisis, we will face it together." Alara leaned into him. She thought about everything they had survived, everything they had created, everything that still waited ahead. "I love you," she said. She had never said it before. Not directly. Not like this. Daniel pulled her closer. "I love you too," he said. "I have loved you since the moment you accepted my proposal in that conference room. I just did not want to push you. I wanted you to find your own way there." "Always so patient," she murmured. "That is what humans do," he replied. "We wait. We hope. We believe that things can get better. And when they do, we work to make them better still." She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the consortium was planning new attacks. Somewhere out there, new threats were forming. The galaxy was still dangerous. The peace was still fragile. But standing here, with Daniel beside her, she was not afraid. They had built something remarkable. Not a conquest. Not an empire. Something better. A partnership. A bridge between worlds. A proof that different did not have to mean enemy. And as long as they stood together, she knew that nothing in the universe could tear it apart. The worlds would continue to bend. Not by force. Not by fear. By hope. By trust. By love. The end.